Once all these things, and I'm showing you everything that's happening, once all this stuff happens, all in one wave, it's going to be the biggest boom in history. We've never had this before, which is pretty amazing. The good part is, I'm telling you about it now, ahead of time, and hopefully do something about it. But in 5 years' time, I'm going to say, I told you so. That's why I'm taping this, so I can say, hey, look, I actually... Because I predicted the election too, and I videotaped it and put it on Facebook, because I knew everyone's going to say, oh yeah, sure you did, but I did. And I said, look, the Liberals are going to win, because the other guy's a dick. That was basically... And I'm not political, but he was just terrible. You know, he just wanted to tax the shit out of everyone. Crazy. I know what Labor's policy was. It was like, if you work hard for your money, we'll take it, give it to someone who doesn't give a rat's about working for it. But I think that we all should have the opportunity to work hard and make money and create financial freedom. You know, it's not up to governments to give us money. It's up to governments to give us the opportunity to make a life for ourselves. Because I don't think handouts are going to help anyone. But I'm not saying I'm against people getting the dole and everything, because I think as a country we should look after every citizen. But I think if we create a country that supports people and helps people create wealth, then we're going to have a good country, and that's the way we're going to do it. There's too much tall poppy syndrome out there. It annoys the shit out of me, really. We should be like the Americans. In America, if you make money, everyone high-fives you and thinks you're a genius. And they applaud it. Here you see someone in a Porsche or a Ferrari, they go, oh, what a wanker. Why? Because they got more money than you. Like, there's nothing wrong with being successful. And if you want to spend it on a Porsche or a Ferrari or a Golf or whatever you want to do, fine. I don't care. I'm not here to judge. But I think we've got too much tall poppy syndrome. And tall poppy syndrome is all about us, people feeling uncomfortable with that whole money topic. As Australians, we're not comfortable with it. We need to get comfortable with it, right? You know, we've got to admit that money is important in our life, and we've got to create money. And I'm not saying let's get filthy rich. I'm saying, we did that exercise earlier today. You make what you need so you can live the life you want to live. As far as I'm concerned, that's successful. I don't consider being mega rich successful at all. I think if 50,000 is enough for you to live every year, if you can create that, I applaud you. That's great. And if you need 200, that's great as well. It doesn't matter. I don't need a lot. I make more than I need. I'm lucky. Sorry? Look, my wife thinks that I'm Jewish, but... Now, foreign born as percentage total in the world. Look at us. You know, we're the most multicultural society in the world, and most non-racist country too, you know, which is good. It will. I think we've got a very good society. It's awesome. If you look at, go to other countries, it's very, very different. Also, Australians, we've got this beautiful culture. And for example, you look at what happened in New Orleans, Katrina. They had that big hurricane. Then what happened? Raping, looting, pillaging. People were getting killed and raped all over the place. We had the floods in Queensland. What happened? Everyone came in and helped everyone. I mean, hello, that's what we love. And I'm very proud of being Australian because of that. And I think we should maintain our culture of mateship and friendship and having a go and helping people. And as a culture, we love helping people, and it's a really good thing. And I think as a culture, that's a great thing, and I don't want to be like America. I think still we've got to get rid of the tall poppy syndrome and keep our core values, and then we're going to go fine. There has been a bit of a downturn, right, in property. You look at Melbourne and Sydney, it's only the real high stuff, the blue chip stuff, that went down. And I never recommend investing in blue chip for long-term growth anyway, because it's already had its growth. I like I go for 3 or 4 bedroom properties that are medium price, because 80% of people, that's the price range they go in, that's what they want, 3 or 4 bedroom house. You don't want to go for something different, unusual. Our population projections, each year they keep putting it up because it thinks they're going to go up. So our population is going to grow quite a bit. Get used to it. It's going to get big. So this is the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and they reckon by 2036 we're going to have 32 million people. I know, a lot of people. But the flights between Sydney and Melbourne Second biggest flight corridor in the world. The only one bigger, I think, is Los Angeles and New York or something. When you think about it, it's amazing. Considering our population, we haven't got a lot of people, but we do a lot of travel and a lot of business. So Sydney and Melbourne are going to accommodate a lot of that growth. So what's happening is, I'll show you the property clock later. Later on, we're going to be able to take advantage. I've got the 10-minute mark. I like to talk. Luckily, I've put this in little sections, it's okay. So, so at the moment, I'm not investing in Sydney and Melbourne because it's on the way down. But once it has a rebound, I'm getting back in there. And I'm going to show you what cities I go for and why and how. But you always look at Australia as a whole market. You don't want to put your eggs all in one basket, you want to spread them out. So if you've got a property in Brisbane, well, you want to put another property somewhere else and vice versa, because every market's slightly different. And by having things that are slightly different, you're protecting yourself. You know, you don't want to buy all in one suburb. You know, once you buy one suburb, don't go back. That's it. Done. There's 16,000 suburbs in Australia. Why would you want to go back to the same one? Now look at this. This is interest rates. According to the Bank of England, and they reckon we've got the lowest interest rates in 5,000 years. Even the Egyptians didn't have it this good. Talk about Egyptians. You know the Egyptian slaves? They ran out of makeup and refused to work and had a strike because of that. Like, go figure. I thought there'd be other things you want to strike about. And actually, the Egyptian pharaohs had to import makeup and get it to them because otherwise they weren't going to work. Because apparently in those days in Egypt, that was the thing. There you go. But yeah, so we've got the lowest interest rates in the world ever, last 5,000 years. Actually, Northern Europe, they're experimenting with negative interest rates. Can you believe it? I hope it catches on. Right? Funny enough, in Australia, we've got some of the highest interest rates in the world. We've always been like that. We've got the most conservative Reserve Bank. Because most interest rates are almost zero everywhere else, and we've still got quite high. You know, because a lot of people are saying, well, interest rates are low. Well, they are for us, but for everyone else, they're high. And there is word they might be putting them down again. Who knows? But regardless, interest rates don't bother me one way or the other, because as long as I've got the right structure in place, it doesn't matter. You look at back in the late 80s, interest rates went up to 24%. Crazy. However, you could buy a property, stick a for sale sign in it and make 20 grand in 2 weeks. That's how fast properties were going up in those days. It was crazy because of the inflation. So whenever inflation, when you got high inflation, you get high interest rates, and therefore property grows even faster. So at the moment, very unusual part in history where we've actually got low interest rates, but property growing. Those two things normally track together. This is one of the first times it's different. That's because of immigration and also because of economic prosperity. Because what happens is, when you spend money on infrastructure, right? So let's say, for example, there's a bit of land, let's say A and B. I'm going to draw this to show you how it works. And sorry, I might go a little bit over before our next break, but I think it's important. So, got a bit of land here, house and a few people, and you've got land there, but there's a river here, and people will have to travel all the way around to get there. So what happens is the government says, okay, we're going to build a bridge. They build a bridge, a bit like the harbour bridge there. So what happens, that bridge now connects these two pieces of land. So that money they put in the bridge actually improves this land here and here. Who benefits? Society as a whole, because it's easier, but especially the people actually that own the land around there, right? So when the government spends money, they're actually putting money into your land. That's what we have to understand. That's why I love buying where there's going to be infrastructure, because when they're spending money, they're spending it on my property to improve it. So economic prosperity, spending from government, and supply and demand, that's how properties go up. Okay, I'm moving a bit closer now. According to the ABS, we've got a healthy level of debt. 70% of Australians own or are paying off their own home. We've got very, very big home ownership in Australia, and which is great. So compared to other countries, we're way ahead. The economics of Australia are very different to the rest of the world, which is pretty cool. You know, in Europe, most people can't afford to live in a house. They've got to live at their parents' house, and the grandparents and the whole generation, they just keep putting another story on top and just live there. I know, we just came back from Europe last year. So Australians got a lot of equity too. 50% of Australian homes have got no debt against them. Can you believe it? It's amazing when you think about it. There's lots of equity out there. And this is the crazy thing. There's all these people with equity out there. And the equity's sitting there doing nothing. And they're out there working every day. And the equity is doing nothing. You know, who's got a mortgage here? Great, I'm going to use you as an example. What was your name?
Stephanie.
Stephanie. What do you do for a living, Stephanie?
Pharmacist.
Pharmacist. Okay, what time do you get up in the morning?
6.
6, great. You get up in the morning, what do you have for breakfast? Toast. You get up at 6, you walk past your lounge, you say, hello equity, how are you? You have your toast, you go to work, what time do you get back?
6.
6. So long hours, you're a professional, obviously you earn good money, but you work long hours, you come back at 6, what's your equity be doing? Nothing. Watching Days of Our Lives, hanging around, doing nothing. And you've been out there working hard for your equity. Now, most people that have got a mortgage have got a pile of money sitting in their lounge room and they're out there working for it instead of the other way around. And then people go, oh, but I don't want to risk my equity. Hello, what's your biggest investment? Who's your biggest investment? You. What's more important than equity? You. You're the most important thing. So who would you rather work, you or your equity? Answer, please. Equity, that's right. Also, if you've got a pile of money in the bank, you're working for that. Wouldn't you rather get your money out there working for you? Money equity is there for one reason only. It's not there to accumulate and for you to just keep working and working and working. So I remember when I was in primary school, we had this, a friend of mine, Kathy, her father came from Greece and he had this fish and chip shop. And he used to get up at 4 in the morning and peel all the potatoes by hand, and his hands would be all stuffed because every morning they'd be in water just to save money because he didn't want to pay for it. And he'd work there from 4 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night every day making hamburgers and stuff like that. And he kept buying houses and houses. He had like 10 houses and never went back to Greece. And then when he was in his 60s, he died of a heart attack. Never saw his family, never went back to Greece, never had one day off, and never did anything but peel potatoes and serve people. What a complete waste of time. And he had all those houses, and it was a waste. And a lot of people out there get it wrong and they work too hard. Because at the beginning you got to work hard, but really your money and your equity is there to work for you. Be smart. Don't work for your money, for your equity. Get it working for you. What I do, I get up probably 9:30. Seriously, I'm not an early start. You can ask Ashley. What time do you start? 10? Yeah, because I don't want to get up earlier than that. And
Still don't answer the door when I knock.
yes, I'm not into getting up early. And why? Because my equity's up. I make more money when I sleep. My equity's out there working for me all the time, non-stop, just churning, making me money. I can't even work as hard as my equity. It's great, and that's what you want to do. You know, if I can impart anything on you, get the equity, get it working for you. Don't work for the equity. It's the wrong way to do it. But we've been taught the old way. Work hard for your equity, work hard for your money, put it in the bank, keep saving it. No, invest your equity, invest your money, get it working hard for you so you don't have to. I'm not saying don't work. I still work, but I choose my own times. I can do what I like, and that's the way to do it. Population growth rates. Well, no surprise, look at Australia. And look at, we're actually going 3 times faster than China. You know why, don't you? Because they're all moving here. Yep, they are. Yep. So, you know, it's pretty amazing. So record number of immigrants arrived in Australia with 115,000 in just 1 month. These people, guess what? They need to live somewhere. Where there's crisis opportunity, it's up to us to house the immigrants. Yes. Let's do it, because we're lovely people and we'll look after them. No, seriously, we have to. We have to do it for them. Despite war, drought, change of government, migration, interest rate, unemployment, it doesn't matter. They're going to go up anyway. Even if Shorten came in, next 10 years, property will still double. Now, remember I was talking about the 18-year property cycle that all those geniuses worked out? So what happens is, you got 7 years, then you got a dip, then it goes up again, right? Then you got the 2-year winner's curse, because then it drops back down again, goes up. Now you can tell, so if you look at this graph, so we've got the recovery phase, the mid-cycle dip, explosive phase, recession phase. So this is what's going to happen. See, 2008 was the GFC, that happened here. We started recovering. And guess what happened? What's happening now? We're at the mid-cycle dip. Am I surprised? No. Everyone's going, oh my God, property's going down. No, I expected it, but it doesn't matter. Because what's happening is we've got the mid-cycle dip happening here. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to skyrocket. And we're going to make money. And it's all a matter of finding the right areas that are affordable and buying the right areas. It takes a bit of a science. I'm going to go through how I do this thing and how I choose properties. So these regular cycles happen over and over and over again. We saw that graph of the median house price every 10 years, and it just kept going up with every capital city in Australia. It's always done it, and it probably always will for a long time, because we've got so much growth. And you saw what's happening in the economy. Someone's showing off his abs, nice abs. And yeah, so we're here. So Australia's population map, long complicated map, but basically there's 28 metrics and 16,000 suburbs Australia-wide. And what I do is I spend quite a bit of money on property statistics. I'm a bit of a nerd. And I'll look at all these suburbs. And out of all these suburbs, there's a select few that fit our criteria. Because the challenge is, out of these 16,000 suburbs, some properties are too cheap or too expensive, others are too hard to hold. So even though there's a lot of areas that are going to go up, we want to find areas that are going to go up that's going to cost less than $50 a week. So that's quite a specific thing we're looking for, and because of that, there's only a handful of suburbs that are going to fit our criteria, that are no-brainers. Because I like to go for the no-brainer stuff. You know, I don't like, trying to guess too much. I want to go for the real easy stuff, the stuff that I know is going to work long-term. Some of the areas where you can get information on properties and statistics. But I've actually got every single metric on every single suburb in all of Australia. And I've got a formula that I go through to give me a number called the demand-supply ratio. And that number tells me, is it good, is it bad? So before we can do due diligence, we want to find out, has the suburb got potential? Is it going to go up, or is it not going to go up? Is this number magic? Sort of, kind of, yeah. But it's not a crystal ball. But if the number's right, we know long-term it's going to work. And if the number's shit, you shouldn't be going there. Oops, sorry, I swore again. I'm going to get in trouble again. Okay, so by the time it goes on today, tonight, it's too late. That suburb's finished. You get those property magazines that go, Gladstone went up 3 years in a row. Well, you don't want to buy there. It really, I cannot believe that people look at that stuff, and I see a lot of companies going, you should buy, because I get calls all the time from property companies. They're like, oh, this suburb went up 5 years in a row. Too late then. Why do I want to buy? I don't want to buy a suburb that's gone up 5 years in a row. I want to buy a suburb that hasn't gone up 5 years in a row. That's what I want. Because someone has already made the money if it's gone up 5 years in a row. How long do they expect it to go up for? They've only got a certain amount of time, you know what I mean? So, real estate porn. Realestate.com, and domain is just real estate porn, unless you know what you're doing. A lot of the properties, you're going to find aren't going to be on there. And if they are, they're like a needle in a haystack. This is the retail buyer's guide. It's not for property investors unless you know exactly what you're doing. So, demand-supply ratio. Why is demand-supply ratio such a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because I think that the demand and supply is the most important factor when it comes to economics. Makes a lot of sense. So, for example, Apple EarPods. You can't get them anymore. So they don't... Have you ever bought an Apple product and got a discount? No. Why is that? Because Apple on purpose, they calculate and go, okay, we've got 100,000 people that want to buy a product, we're going to make 90,000. There was a company that had a T-shirt with a picture of a brick or something, or Supreme. And what they did is they made a very limited number of them, so people paid shitloads of money for this T-shirt with Supreme written on there, their logo. So when there's a lack of supply, demand goes up. So we don't want to buy in an area where there's a lot of supply. Like, for example, when everyone was buying Gladstone, I don't know if anyone's heard of Gladstone, it's up in Queensland. It's a rural town, mining town, and there was a lot of economic benefit going on. However, there was just piles of land around it. And because of that, you're never going to have an undersupply. So therefore, it's going to be hard for the property to go up. But also, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. So if someone's saying, buy this property, you're going to get $1,000 a week, I don't want to buy that property because something's going on there. Because a good quality property ain't going to be such high rent. It just doesn't make sense. Or if someone's saying, well, the developer's giving you $20,000 back for this one. Well, shit, I'm not going to buy that either, am I? If they're willing to give me 20 grand discount, why do they give me a discount? And a lot of people want to buy property undervalued. You can't buy property undervalued. It's a fallacy, it's not true. There's always seminars out there, how to buy property undervalued. Unless you trick someone, it's not going to happen. And I don't think it's the fair thing to do. There's all these courses out there, you're paying 15 grand, you go knocking doors, try to find old granny and offer her less money than what a property's worth. I don't think it's ethical, and I think it's hard work, and people aren't stupid these days. And I don't think it's good. But buying property undervalued is a fallacy, because a property is only worth what people are willing to pay for it, and that's the market value. And if you want to buy a good quality property, unfortunately you have to pony up and pay for the price. That's the fact of it. The only property you're going to get at a discount is property that's shit, and you don't want that. So whenever you're getting a deal, you're not getting a deal. And people say to me, oh, do you buy property undervalued? No, I don't. I pay the fair market value, but I don't pay over the fair market value. That's the difference too, because a lot of people end up doing that, and that's what you don't want to do. You want to avoid paying over the value, but paying under the value, I don't think it's possible. It's not like buying a used car. That's my philosophy when it comes to property. And also, units. I don't like units. There's so many people jumping on this unit bandwagon. If you're going to buy units, don't buy units. Look, just don't do it. With every rule, there's always an exception, and I want to say that as well, because sometimes I'll say a rule and it's a general rule and it works 99% of the time, but there's always an exception if you work something out. And if you're going to buy a boutique unit in a very small group on a beach or something, somewhere like that in Grange or something, yes. But if you're going to buy in a capital city in a big group of units, that's just stupid. See, if you buy in a group of units, let's say there's 100 units in this group, and you go in there, and usually you're buying them off the plan, you've got to wait 2 years before they finish. And I hate doing that. I'm not very patient. I want to get a property straight away. I'm not waiting around. Because I want to get my tax deductions, I want to get my growth, I want to get all that stuff. And I can't predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. The property might even drop a little bit. Like, I want to be able to get it now. So then what happens is everyone signs up and puts their deposit down. There's 100 units there. Well, in 2 years' time, at least 10% of the people, their financial situation is different. They may have got divorced, they lost their job or something. They can't afford that property anymore. But they've committed to it. So what do they have to do? They have to sell it. And so if 10% of them are selling it, they're going to compete with each other, which is a quick race to the bottom. So what are they going to do? They're going to reduce their price. Most of the time. 80% of the time, they reduce their price. So when they put their price down, what happens to your unit? It's dropped your price straight away. So you may have bought it for 200, they sell theirs for 150, your unit is worth 150 now. That's it. But if you've got a townhouse or a house, because it's more individual, and there's not that many units, another price can't directly affect you as much. There is an upside to it as well when you've got units, and that has happened on occasion. Happened in Glenelg back in 1999, last time I saw it. That's how rare it is. But what happened was they had a bunch of units there that people bought, and the price went up. So because someone sold it for more, everyone's price went up as well. So it can work in your favour, but most of the time it works against you, and that's why we don't want to do it. We want to have boutique stuff. We don't want to go into something that's really big. We want boutique. Boutique is good. Big is not good. We don't want to be able to compare it to too many other properties. But the good thing is, this happened with a row of cottages here in Adelaide. There was these old row of cottages, and there was like 10 of them. And one person moved in, bought this cottage, and they just spent a shipload, no swearing thing, shipload of money fixing it up and made it amazing. And then they sold it. And the person who bought it paid a lot more. All the other cottages went up in value without spending 1 cent. How cool is that? That can happen too, but unfortunately it doesn't happen very often. We're going to stick to the basics. We're going to buy a property and let it grow. But I thought I'd share that with you anyway, because there's other ways of doing things as well. Yeah, so basically, demand-supply ratio, with this, we can cut through all the crap and we can find out exactly if a property is good or bad. And basically, it looks at the whole country as a whole, and it's a numerical thing. It's not subjective. It's a number. And you look at the number and go, okay, is it a good number? Is it a bad number? I like making property investing back to numbers because that takes all the emotion out. Because we don't want to go in emotional. You've got to be cool as a cucumber. You look at these martial artists when they fight, and what do? They try to put each other off their game and they taunt each other and all that sort of stuff, because if they get the other guy angry, he's going to lose the fight. And especially in sports, that's what they do. Because people that are cool, calm, and collected are going to win the fight because they're level-headed. If someone's angry or emotional, they're not going to win the fight. When we're investing in property, we don't want to be emotional. We don't want to fall in love with the property or go, oh, I don't like the property because this. Who cares? I don't even look at my properties. I just look at the numbers. The numbers work, I buy it. They don't work, I don't buy it. Simple. It doesn't matter if I like it or not. I'm not going to live in it. I'm not planning on going there. Actually, I don't even know where my addresses of my property are. I know the suburb. I mean, the one property I bought in Perth, I bought over the phone. And it wasn't until 2 years later that I actually got to see it when I was in Perth. And it was great because it had made me $250,000 before I even saw it. Pretty cool. So the supply-demand ratio, Australian Property Investor magazine, they've got the Hot 100 issue, right? And they've got all these experts that predict what's going to happen. And you look at the green line, that's national median growth. You look at the blue line, that's the magazines, so they do better than the average. You look at demand-supply ratio, slightly better because it's objective. And what I want to do is, you can't massively outperform the market, but you can do a little bit better and give yourself a little edge, that's all. I'm not promising miracles here. I'm just saying what we're going to do is do a little bit scientifically and try to do a little bit better. And if we get a miracle, awesome. If we don't, we're still going to make money long term. Because I think you should always prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. So, I don't want to bore you too many details, but I'm going to go through this quickly because it can get quite boring. So what we're doing is we're looking at typical value, days on market, average vendor discount. So we're looking at a typical value of a property in the area. So then we can compare it to what we're buying. Then we're looking at days in the market. So if a property's been on the market, if a property's spent a lot of days in the market, that means there's too much supply. We don't want to buy that property. We want an area where they don't spend a lot of days in the market. The average vendor discount. Do you want to buy in an area where there's big discounts or little discounts? Hello? Little, that's right. What do all the property experts say to you? Big discounts. They got it completely wrong. We want little discounts because those areas are good. Where you're getting big discounts, those areas are not as good. Auction clearance rates. If properties are selling and clearing at auction, that's a good thing. If they're not, that's bad. Rent to proportion. Sometimes, some areas, you're going to have a lot of renters. Less renters is better. But you've got to get that balance, you know what I mean? Because there's no such thing as a perfect area or property. There's going to be one or two statistics that aren't looking that good. Because if all of them were great, it'd be a blue chip property, we couldn't afford it anyway. Vacancy rate. Vacancy rates are very important. You know what vacancy rate means? It means the percentage of properties that are vacant at any given time in that area, right? So if something's got a 3% vacancy rate, that means that out of 100 properties, 3 properties are up for rent. So anything under 3%, I'm okay with. Anything over 3%, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because then I'm going to have trouble renting it out. Now, I don't know if you noticed a few of the testimonials. A lot of our members, they rent their house out in 1 day or a week. Why is that? It's because we go for low vacancy areas. It's part of our due diligence. We want to go there because if you buy a brand new property, it's 3% vacancy, you're competing, you're going to get your property rented out just like that. You go somewhere with 5 or 10% vacancy, good luck. And if you go to country towns and places like that, the vacancy's bad. You buy an old property, the vacancy's worse because people prefer new properties. So when you buy a new property, it's easier to rent out too. The yield. The yield's important. If the yield's too high, then there's a problem because that means the area is too far out. So the yield, we're looking for 4.5% to 5.5%. Anything below 4.5% is going to cost too much for you to own because it's going to be too negative geared. Anything more than 5.5% yield means there's a problem going on there because you're getting too much money. And why are you getting too much money? It means something's going to happen. So for example, when I saw Gladstone, people were getting $2,000 for a $400,000 house, I saw a problem there. And it happened. What happened was those properties halved in value. And so did the rent. Because if the rent's out of kilter, that means there's an anomaly. We don't want that. The rent needs to be around 5.5%. Any more or less than that, something's not quite right and you've got to investigate it and find out. Because there's no such thing as a free lunch in property. That's the thing. You know, you always have to balance it out. Percentage of stock in the market. If all the properties are on the market, stay away. You only want a small percentage of properties in the market because you can tell by that, because I look at that and what I do is with all these, I filter them out and just delete all the properties that got anything bad. So therefore, I only come up with a certain group of properties that I like in that area. Online search interest. If there's a lot of people searching that area, but there's not a lot of percentage of market on there, that means that's going to grow because people are doing that. And these days we can find that out. You couldn't when I first started. Then you've got market cycle timing, neighbour price balancing. So if you've got a suburb and all the neighbour suburbs around there are really expensive, that's a good sign, isn't it? But if you've got a suburb and all the neighbours are cheap, then you don't want to be the most expensive person there. You don't want to have the best house. You want the worst house, the best street, not the other way around. And maybe not the best street, a medium street. Because what we're doing, we're going mid-range here. We're not going for the blue chip stuff. The ripple effect of potential. Through the statistics, you can find the ripple effect. The ripple effect means that if there's expensive suburbs around, how is that going to affect your property? Is it going to ripple through? And a unit to house value comparison. So units and houses, how do they compare in value? That's important. The long-term growth, we want to know that. We want to know, okay, so over the long term, has it recently gone up or has it stayed steady? Because we like something that's really steady. We don't want something that jumps around a bit too much. Because areas that jump around, that means that they've got only 1 or 2 places of employment. They go up and down, and the prices are part of that. The percentage of sales by auction. The more properties that sell on auction, the hotter the market. So if you've got too many auction sales, you might be up really high on the clock, and I'll show you the property clock. It might be a little bit too hot. Okay, then let's go to the next part. Ethnicity. We want to know what sort of people live there. Is that politically correct? Anyway, But anyway, you do. Because what you want to do is you want the right type of people living there and the right mix. Very, very important. Like there's a lot of areas that the Chinese are moving to. The Chinese spend a lot of money. And what happens is they really spend a lot of money in their properties and really push the value up. So there's a lot of different sort of areas you've got to look at that sort of stuff. HIP score. How hip is this area? You know that a HIP score makes a big difference because if an area is really hip, it's going to go up in value. Like here in Adelaide, for example, Croydon with Queen Street, the price has been pushed up because of all the cafes. Once little cafes start going around a little place and it becomes hip, everyone wants to live there, and suddenly it becomes cool. Affluence score. Affluence score is important because if it's really low, then no one's got any money. You know what I mean? So you don't want everyone on the dole in your area. So affluence score important. Then you've got lifestyle score. What sort of lifestyle can you live there? Convenience. People love convenience. And if you can walk to shops and pubs and stuff like that, that's very convenient. Tranquility speaks for itself. Communication. If you've got the NBN, that helps. And community score. So when we're looking at an area, usually when we look at these numbers here, they're not all going to be 9 out of 10. If they're all 9 out of 10, you can't afford that property. It's already had its growth. However, if most of these are high and you've got one or two that are low, there's a bit of an opportunity going on there because they're going to push the other one up. So let's say, for example, everything's good except for the affluence, but it's hip. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to go up in value. That's a bargain. So, for example, in Sydney, Surrey Downs, the affluence score was very low, but the hip score went up. And that used to be a ship hole of a place, right? It was real ship hole. But anyway, what happened was because all the cafes, it got gentrified. And gentrification means that richer people come in, then the council rates go up and the poor people get pushed out, and it creates the suburb, makes the suburb better. And now it's a very expensive area in Sydney, really expensive. Like you're paying $1 million for a house now. And before, the houses were like 100 grand. So